Hello, everyone on the call. As Tina introduced, we'll be talking about building modern apps on the Microsoft Teams platform. So a little bit of introduction about myself. So I am part of the Microsoft Teams product engineering group based out of Bangalore. We have presence across the globe with two major development centers where engineering team sits is Bellevue in the US and then huge presence in Bangalore, India as well. I belong to the Teams customer and partner ecosystem group within the product group, and primarily work with app developers, both enterprise app developers as well as SaaS application app developers to build and ship their applications on the Teams platform. And so very excited to see all of you on the call. And over the next 45 minutes or so, my goal is to kind of introduce the Teams platform to you, showcase some of the capabilities, hopefully inspire you to build on this platform. It's a year and a half old product, and the platform has been evolving a lot as we speak. And hopefully you'll see value on building modern apps on Microsoft Teams, and then ship some of those apps for our customers to use on the Teams App Store. So with that, let's get started. Before I get into the platform, a quick overview on Microsoft Teams itself. So Microsoft Teams is now a year and a half old product. It's the new hub for teamwork in Office 365, which means it's a unified workspace which brings all your communication, collaboration, all of that need into a single interface. So you can do chat, you can do meetings, you can do callings, and if you have used Teams, you are already aware of that. So it's built on the rich the rich infrastructure of Office 365, which is understood to be secure and compliant all across the globe, loved by IT pros, loved by users. And the one of the key pillars of Microsoft Teams is its platform angle, which means the Teams as a product allows developers like you to actually build applications and integrations on its platform itself. The idea being that any knowledge worker of today who's using Teams day in and day out to communicate and collaborate within their organization, they constantly work throughout the day with multiple SaaS applications, workflows, processes, and the idea is to actually have all of that available inside Teams as well. Context switching, we all know, happens throughout the day, and that results in a loss of productivity a lot, which means if we are able to bring in all of these app services, commonly used functionality right inside a single interface, our vision is to basically help knowledge workers save that loss of productivity and time that they lose due to context switching. So we are here to deep dive into the extensibility or the app platform aspect of Teams. So moving forward, we have an in-product app store, as you can see highlighted on the screen as part of my presentation. This is the in-product app store where all apps which are there on the Teams platform are discoverable to any user. Users can install the app. It has various capabilities and functionalities that I will highlight as we go forward in our presentation. Okay, so quick. We all love numbers, so quick preview of what an incredible momentum Teams has had over the last year or so. We just celebrated our first year anniversary a couple of months back, and these are all public figures that we announced as part of that. So 3 million Teams have been created in the last 1 year. About 200K organizations have been using Teams. This count has gone up now that we've pretty much existed for 18 months or so. 70% of Skype for Business enterprise customers, which is a very, very popular communication product suite, is now using Teams, and the announced roadmap from Microsoft side is that Skype for Business Online will be replaced with Microsoft Teams as the collaboration and communication client within Office 365, which essentially means that more and more people are going to start adopting Teams in the coming days and months. Currently available in 39 languages across 181 markets. So it's a truly global product, and hence a truly global platform to build your application and services and integrate your services on the Teams app store. The other highlight of Teams as a product is it is available across clients, across platforms, which means be it wherever the user is, be it on desktop, be it on Mac, be it on tablets, mobile, iPhone, Android, iOS platform, as well as leading browsers of the world. Teams as a product is basically available. I'll come to it why this is important for and why you should care about this as an app developer when we cover about why you should build on Teams. This slide is basically an overview of how the Office 365 platform itself is shaping up, and the way it has been evolving is now conversations have become core to the Office 365 ecosystem itself. So you have multiple Office canvases, as you can see on the screen. So you have documents, you have different pages. Primarily in SharePoint, you have portals, you have pages, you have the concept of Word, Excel, PowerPoint as documents, as well as web documents. And then you have that's the Office ecosystem or the Office apps. And then you have other standalone web web apps and services, which you typically use in a browser, right? What all of these apps have in common is they all plug into two types of data sources, as you can see on the screen. One is, Office apps primarily derive a lot of intelligence from the Microsoft Graph, which is where, all your activity data, all your files, all your, preferences, which are in the enterprise world kind of resides. And then at the same time, the apps and, external web apps and services that you use, they typically plug into external data and content which resides on third-party servers. Now, the idea is that can we basically imagine an Office 365 space, a unified space which actually brings all of this together, and that essentially is what we are trying to do at in the Teams platform level, which means your Office 365 data is already available in Teams because hey, it's built on the Office 365 infrastructure. It has Word, Excel, PowerPoint, SharePoint, OneDrive, all of these things integrated in the product itself. As well as first-party Microsoft apps and services like, let's say, Planner or Power BI. All of the goodness of the Microsoft ecosystem is included in Teams. The gap is being filled in by the third-party services. So, because people actually use a host of services throughout the day. So how can we get the third-party apps and services also available inside Teams is where, developers like you come and build app integrations on the Teams platform. The idea is, the premise is, can you make teamwork and individuals more productive with Teams app? We believe yes, because you can enable your teams to make decisions and take actions faster. You can reduce context switching and hence save a lot of time throughout the day for any employee. You can also create opportunities for collaboration within your team members around the data and content which doesn't live inside Teams. So a lot of times you come across, if you're using third-party tools, if you're using external tools which are not Microsoft tools, you are most of the times at a loss of how do I collaborate around it, right? Your collaboration happens in chat apps and your data actually lives outside in external tools. Teams is trying to, by building an integration, Teams allows you to actually bridge that gap and surface your data, content, and services right inside the Teams where people can actually collaborate around it. Just from a definition point of view, any app that you see inside Teams, they can come from a variety of publishers. What we call as a first-party apps are apps which ship along with Teams. These are all Microsoft or Office 365 workloads like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, SharePoint, Planner, Power BI. All of these are basically apps developed by Microsoft. So these are already available to all users in Teams. By any app which is developed by third-party developers, take popular applications like Trello, Wrike, Jira, Bitbucket, Asana, Adobe Cloud, Adobe Sign. All of these are apps which are currently live on the Teams App Store. They are all classified and we call them as third-party apps. Third category is, and it might be relevant to some of you, if you build apps for your organizations or your enterprises, which are internal applications, those are what we are calling as custom apps. So I just wanted to kind of lay the terminology out here clearly so that when we talk about it later in the presentation, we know when we refer to third-party apps, what does it mean? And when we say, let's build a custom app, what does that mean? So moving on, here is why you should build on the Teams platform. So if this here, what I'm trying to argue is, if you have a choice of platform to have an integration with, or where you should build your next modern app, why you should consider Teams, and why we think that building on Teams is actually the most logical choice. The first point being, it enables your app to be discovered effortlessly. Most of the users that you are building for in the enterprise context or business productivity context, they are anyway spending most part of their day primarily collaborating and communicating on the Microsoft Teams platform. So it's intuitive to actually surface your app, your services, content, and data in a platform where people already are active. So bring your service to where your users already are is the pitch here. Using the Teams platform, you can choose the audience for your app. If you are building an app which you think it can be used by pretty much anybody in the world, we have the Office Store through which you can publish your app and it will be available to all Teams users across the world. If you only want to build an app which is restricted to your own organization or your own enterprise, you can do that as well, because now Teams support a concept called as Company App Catalog. More on that later. So you can choose literally who the audience is for your app, and you can kind of make your app available to either widely or to a very narrow set of employees as your use case demands. Conversations come free. So because Teams is primarily a conversational platform, that means whenever you think of building your app or service, you don't need to actually build a conversation layer of its own. You can just plug into the conversation layer that Teams provide, and by building an integration, your users can now use the conversation layer of Team and data and content from your app. And now, voila, you have a story wherein you can go take your app to your customer and say, use it on a conversation platform like Teams, which is basically the thing these days. We have a rich app platform. Teams currently supports 6 app capabilities. We'll go through it once, in a couple of moments, and then more are coming up every quarter. I have a few slides dedicatedly to give you a sneak peek of what is it that you can expect from the platform, and how can these capabilities allow you to build more immersive experiences right inside Teams. The last one being build once and use everywhere, because Teams as a client is available across platforms. You can reduce design, development, and service overheads by building a Teams app once, and your users can actually access it and use it across clients wherever they are. So no longer building a web version, building an iOS app, an Android app, and so on and so forth. You can actually build it once for Teams, surface it within Teams, and because Teams clients are available everywhere, users can use your app across platforms. So far, just to get you excited, there are 200 plus Teams app currently on the Teams App Store. Some big names on the slide. Developers and SaaS companies all over the world have shipped their apps on Teams. You can see Intercom, you can see Trello, Adobe, Asana, SignEasy, Zoho, Freshdesk, all of these, GitHub, Rike, Hootsuite, all the known apps that people, known SaaS apps that business productivity workers all across the world use. It's very likely that you will find it on the Teams App Store. And, if you build an app as well, that can actually get included in the list. Cool. So at this point of time, let me introduce you, what the Teams platform capabilities are. So we keep talking about hey, we have a rich platform, we have 6 capabilities. So as a developer, you might be wondering, how do I build an integration with Microsoft Teams? And you keep talking about apps. What is it really that I can build? Listed on the screen, there are the 6 capabilities that Teams as a platform supports today. More are being added. And let me just take you on, and I'll give you a quick sneak peek of what each of them mean. Bots, I think all of us are familiar with bots. Bots are the, it's a new craze these days. Essentially getting tasks done and simple workflows executed, getting notifications done, all of that right inside Teams as a product using a conversational interface. Now, when I say conversational interface, you can interact with the bot using chat. You can also, but Teams bots are actually not only restricted to conversational UI itself, right? You can have, as you can see on the screen, you can see rich cards in bots, which pretty much makes bots a very, very powerful UI itself to execute your workflows and take actions. I have a nice sample app that you will be able to see what rich cards mean in the context of bots. Then comes tabs. So tabs are basically, think of it as web canvas, rich web UI, web experiences that you can actually access right inside Teams. So if there is any existing website or existing web experience that you already have as part of your existing application, you can actually bring it right inside Teams as a tab, and users can actually freely interact with your experience inside Teams. Think of it as an iframe, which is basically running your experience right inside the product. No context switching, no more running, no more going into a browser. Get all of that rich experience right inside Teams. We have connectors. Using connectors, you can post rich updates into channels. The thing to note over here is these updates can be actionable, which means if as a developer, if you have basically, if you fired a build in your build system and after the build got completed, you can actually get an update in the channel which says, hey, the build that you just fired has been updated. And with that, you can actually take actions on that saying, hey, now the next step in the process or next workflow can actually be executed using action buttons over here. That's what I mean by actionable messaging. Bot cards, connector cards, all of these inside Teams have the support of actions. What I mean by actions is if you see these rich, these nice buttons as part of the card, using these buttons, you can actually execute workflows by communicating back to your service. So if imagine if you have basically filed a new build request, or if you have filed a new code review request, right, and you share and you want to basically share that with your manager or with your peers to actually review. After the review, they can approve your code review right from within Teams. They don't have to go to any other system. If the integration you have built supports actionable messaging, you can basically trigger workflows. You can do approvals. You can do submissions. All of these things right from inside the Teams interface itself. The next capability is Compose extension. The official name for this is messaging extension. Messaging extensions allow you to query information from your service in demand and share as rich cards in the Compose box itself. So just as you can type messages in Teams, you can attach files in Teams. Think of it as now you can query and share data and in the Compose box. And while you type messages, you can query from your service and share data with each other in the conversation platform. This is one of the most powerful features of Team, which allows users to collaborate around the data and content which they can pull from your app and service right inside Teams. Last one being activity feed. This is super important. Any way that you want to kind of notify users inside Teams about something that has happened in your service, or you want them to take an action, you can make use of the activity feed. Think of this as the notification center of Teams. We have opened this up for app developers as well, so that you can actually drop in, you can get the users notified for them to take action or just for informational purposes. When the user clicks on any notification, they can be taken to the bot interface, where your bot can actually share more information about what has happened, what is the notification about, and perhaps enable them to take actions using rich cards. So combine all of these six capabilities, and you have a powerful, robust platform in place right inside Teams. So I talked a lot about these capabilities. Now, wanted to basically take a few moments to show you what apps have been built so far on the Teams platform, and I'll basically show you a couple so that you get an idea of, hey, when I say about tabs, when I say about bots, what exactly do I mean by that. So let me switch to my Teams client, and hopefully, okay, it got updated, but hopefully you should be able to see that. Okay, perfect. So if you can see my Teams client, this is my Teams desktop client, and I have a team over here. I have a bunch of teams over here, but the team in focus is something which I have creatively named as Power of Teams Platform. And I will start with demonstrating a few of the apps, and I will keep on mentioning which app capability is being used by the app. These are all apps which are built by app developers like you, SaaS companies, and they are currently live on the Teams App Store. So you can go take a look. The first one is basically a task management app, a project management app built by Zoho Corporation in India. I work pretty closely with this partner, and in this channel called General, this app is actually pinned in. And it's asking me to sign in, so I go to this tab. I need to do this once, so let me sign in using my Office 365 credentials and see which view it loads. So essentially, Zoho Projects is a project management app, a typical project management app, which basically, will list down the various tasks grouped by projects. You can create new tasks. You can actually create. Okay, hold on. Let's do a refresh. Hopefully, it should load. Okay, so as you can see on the screen, this is basically the channel tab that Zoho Projects app has included and shipped on the Teams App Store. Let me maximize it so that you can see in a much better view. So you can see this is basically nothing but a web experience running inside Teams. I have all of my tasks over here. I can take actions. I can do, just as I can interact with this app in the web browser, I can basically mark a task as open or closed. I can add a new task. All of these rich things I can do right from within the Teams interface. I don't have to switch context. I don't have to go to a browser. All of the data is, the moment I sign in, all of these experiences basically available right inside Teams. I can add tasks. I can filter tasks. I can add followers, comments, documents. I can even upload files within Teams itself. I can filter into different views, like all open tasks, not assigned tasks, my open task, my closed task, and so on and so forth, if I do have any. So this is basically a rich web interface channel tab that Zoho has shipped. So this is the first tab that I wanted to basically show to you. I will show another app, which is a Microsoft first-party app. It's the Visual Studio Team Services app. So if you have used Visual Studio, you will be able to see that Visual Studio comes with a Kanban board, and I think most of you being app developers, you will be used to seeing Kanban boards in some form or the other. This is a Visual Studio Kanban board. I have all of these various features that my team is working on, and the Kanban board as a tab, as a channel tab, allows everyone in this team, Power of Teams platform, to basically go and look at all features that the entire team is working on, which customers have asked for it, who it is assigned to, and so on and so forth, right? So this is basically a pretty complex tab built by the Visual Studio team, and what it allows me to do is, if I click on any of the of these tasks, right, it basically opens the task in in the same in a much more detailed view right inside this tab. I can edit, I can add, I can do comments, I can assign it to somebody else, and the whole power of Visual Studio, what you can do in a browser, that is now possible to be done inside Teams itself. So this what I'm trying to do is basically give you a sense of, hey, what kind of experiences that is it that you can build as tabs inside Teams. And both the apps that you just saw, they're like pretty complex apps. They have multiple views, drill down views that you can actually enable. But essentially, it is nothing but a web experience that you have brought into Teams. The third one is basically a Freehand by InVision app. The Freehand by InVision app is basically it's a a sketching app. It's basically a whiteboarding app, which I have pinned to this channel. And now I can actually use to uh, do brainstorming, and do sketching, and collaborate with people in this team to kind of do some kind of whiteboarding exercise and then later save it, so that it is available for everybody to see. So this is purely an inking app, which is possible inside Team. So pretty complex set of experiences that you can actually build as part of the Teams tab workflow. The other app that I want to basically show you, and I'll just switch browsers because it's open in another window, is this app called Site 24/7. Site 24/7 is for example, if I go to this channel called Monitor Server Health, it's basically an app which allows you, it's live on the Teams App Store. It allows you to actually view the status of various servers and web services that you have deployed in a rich dashboard format. So this is all real time. Site 24/7 supports dashboards, so you can build dashboards in Site 24/7 service in the browser, and then your entire team can monitor the status of all your services in real time using the tab that they have integrated inside Teams. So here you can see response time and a bunch of different standard web services metrics that I have built, but all of this is pinned, and it's all rendering right inside Teams in real time. So this is another example of what you can build, and the kind of complex apps that you can build right inside Teams. So that was just to basically give you a sense of what is possible. I have one more app that I want to show you, which is basically going to demo the bot functionality. So we have this Contoso Talent as a sample app that we usually build and showcase to our customers. This one, I wanted to basically take a moment and show you how you can build rich bots right inside Teams, right? So this one is running in my personal scope, and I can use the Contoso Talent app, which is basically a talent management app, mostly suited at HR and recruiting personnels to manage people who are in the pipeline for recruiting for certain positions within the organization. So let me type help, the bot responds saying, hey, I can help you with these things. So let me pick up one of the bot commands over here and then type and send it to the bot. So I'm conversing with the bot, but the thing to notice over here is the bot can reply to me as text response, as you can see over here when I type help, or the bot also support a pretty rich card interface, which is basically a nice UI with pictures and different types of text formatting and so on and so forth. The good part about what Teams bot support is you can actually add actionable buttons, as you can see over here. Both of these are actionable buttons that have been added to this bot card, which means I, as a recruiter, can take an action for this candidate called John Smith right from within Teams. I don't have to go to any other app in my browser to set an interview date for this candidate. I can just click on this. It opens an input field with a date selector. I can choose the date. I can say okay, and it will make a service call. It will basically submit that and store the interview date in the database. So you can build any kind of app integration which basically has querying of information, storing of information, taking actions, all of that using actionable cards, actionable bot cards right inside Teams. I can add a comment if I want after I'm done with the interview, and then I can submit that as well. That will also get saved in the database. So this is just to basically give you a view of what complex or what rich tabs as well as what rich bots look like in Teams. Hopefully this will give you an idea of what kind of apps you can build. Cool. So before you build any kind of app experiences in Teams, the one concept that you always need to keep in mind is something that we call a scope. Any app that you build in Teams today we support two different scopes. Either it can be a team scope or it can be a personal scope. Team scope, think of apps which are basically installed into Teams and channels and accessible by all team members as team scope apps. So in my demo, I had showed you Site 24/7, which had the web server monitoring dashboard, as well as the Zoho projects tab that I had shown. Both of them were channel tabs, which means they're team scope apps. That means it has been pinned into a channel, and everybody in the team who has access to that channel can actually go and start using that app. Of course, they will have to sign in once, but and that will determine if they have access to the data. But once they do that, essentially all your team members are consuming the same view. So anything which is relevant and accessible by all team members go into the team scope. The other one, on the contrary, is basically a personal scope. Personal scope apps are basically your personal productivity app, which means any kind of interaction with the app or the data that lives in that, if that is only accessible and relevant to you, the scope that you should basically think of is the personal scope. So the Contoso Talent app that I showed you, that is basically a personal scope app, because I was the only one interacting with the bot. There was no collaboration element over there. I can interact with the bot if I have another teammate and the app is installed in her machine. She can interact with the bot as well. But both of us are interacting 1:1 with the bot without any kind of collaboration happening between us. So I want to kind of leave you guys with this thought that, hey, if you have if you're planning to build on teams, always keep in mind that you should first determine what scope your app should basically support. Coming on to custom apps that you can build for your organization. So I said there are three kinds of app. First-party apps are Microsoft apps. Third-party apps are what you can build and ship on the store so that any Teams user in the world can use it. The third one is basically apps that you can build for your organization and make it available only for employees in your organization. On this slide, what I'm trying to basically show is what are the various business scenarios, or how to go about thinking, hey, which app, which kind of scenarios make sense to be integrated inside Teams if I'm building an app for my organization. So it can be departmental tools. It can be, for example, DevOps for admins, or it can be sales dashboard for your sales team. It can be, candidate management, as we've shown for the Contoso Talent app. It can be employee resources, any kind of HR portal, leave portal, leave app, time and absence reporting, employee profile, the employee directory that most organizations have. That's a pretty good use case to actually build as an app integration inside Teams, so that you don't have to go to the browser to search for your colleagues. Support and info. A lot of organizations that we are working with are building IT ticketing help desk kind of applications. They're good applications which basically allow you to build rich cards and allow you to interact with and create and pull tickets right inside Teams without going into a browser. New employee onboarding and certain processes and workflows, right? Which is, if you have any kind of approvals, if you have, multi people workflows and approvals and tickets, all of those are good candidates to actually build right inside Teams. Cool.
Hey, Visha, before we move on, there were a couple questions and comments. One from Dennis, who said it would be nice to publish apps links to all users or certain users to the left rail as an admin.
Certainly.
Okay, and then there's one more question. Is there any more information from announcements raised at SPCNA where SharePoint framework extensions can be surfaced in Teams? Not sure if that was missed.
Yeah, so that is something which we have just announced. So quick short answer of that is going forward in the next couple of days or weeks, you will be hearing more about what's our plan, what is the product team working on, what's the product team basically making, surfacing on the platform itself, so that SPFX, web parts can actually be brought inside Teams. So your SharePoint investments can stay as it is. You can actually surface that right inside Microsoft Teams as tabs.
Okay. And then are there any good links on using Teams versus SharePoint sites and when you want to use one versus the other, or how to effectively use both of them together?
Sure, I can look that up. I think as part of our adoption kits, we do have certain guidances around, hey, when is it that you should use SharePoint? When is it that you should use Teams? And
Okay.
the story that we want to basically push is SharePoint and Teams better together because, Teams fosters a lot of conversations the product is built around conversation and collaboration. And, if you have SharePoint sites which you already have built, SharePoint tabs actually allow a great way to actually get all of that content inside Teams and you can collaborate around it.
Okay, that's perfect. So maybe we can grab some links, and when we post the video and the blog, we can put those links into the blog post for you guys so you have it
Absolutely.
available. And then one more quick
Absolutely. I'll work with
question.
you after the call.
Okay, and then another question before we move on. Is there any existing ServiceNow app?
ServiceNow app right now is not there on the store. We are working with the ServiceNow team to actually look for an integration. More on that when we announce it publicly. Currently on the store, if you go and search it, you won't find it.
Okay.
But that's an ask which we know and we are aware of, and we are looking to address that.
Okay, great. And is there a complete list of apps published to Microsoft Teams?
We do have a public page where you can actually go and see all the apps which are published in the Microsoft Teams App Store. You can go to Office Store App Source, that's our app directory, and just filter by Teams. We can include that link, like a direct link in our
Okay.
blog post as well, Jenna.
Okay, that sounds great.
Yep.
And then we'll do one more question and then I'll let you move on.
Yeah, no problem.
Is there
Please, go
is
ahead.
there a way for a bot to reach out to the user without the user contacting the bot in the first place, i.e. send ad
Yes,
hoc notifications?
yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. So bots we allow, there's a concept called as proactive messaging. Proactive messaging allows you to, as long as the user has installed the bot, because the installation is a flow where user consents to the app policies and the privacy policy and so on and so forth. So installation is the only event. After that, the bot is free to reach out to the user using proactive messaging. The developer documentation on the Teams doc site has a section called proactive messaging. If you go and basically search for that, you will be able to see how to initiate that. It's absolutely fine for the bot to proactively message the user without the user first contacting the bot. It supports both scopes, personal as well as channel. So your bot can actually proactively message a user directly in personal scope as well as to an entire channel in the channel scope.
Okay, great. And is there any license we need to buy for existing Office 365 customers?
No, absolutely not. So Office 365, most of the Office 365 SKUs have Teams enabled and Teams available in that. Your organization, the IT admin has to enable Teams. That's basically an opt-in. So as long as that is there, you can basically use Teams. But by the way, now if as a developer you want to basically try using Teams and building on Teams, in fact, you should use Teams in your day-to-day work as well, because we now have a Teams free offering. If you have an organization size of up to 300 users, you can go grab a Teams free offering right away on teams.microsoft.com and sign up for that so that you are not dependent on any kind of licenses. That's free of cost, available for you. You can use apps, you can build apps, you can test apps on Teams free as well.
Okay, perfect. And just going back to the ServiceNow app, if you need beta testers, we have people who are available.
Okay.
So
That's good to know. That's
good to know.
Sure, that's
Okay,
good to
with
know.
that,
We will reach out.
we'll let you go on and we'll keep
Sure.
monitoring for additional questions.
Awesome. Okay. So the slide that you see on the screen basically is a framework that lets you think. So if any of you in the audience are enterprise developers, it basically lets you think as to which apps you should pick for integrating with Microsoft Teams first. So it's a usage-driven framework, and this is typically the advice that we give to our customers and partners, that pick those apps which basically your employees use day in and day out, because if these are apps which they are using in browsers or in other applications outside Teams, they essentially are doing a lot of context switching, and which is wasting their time. So this user-driven framework kind of lets you pick and choose and prioritize which apps and services should you integrate within Microsoft Teams first. Of course, the thing to note over here is you don't have to build an app for each service. You can actually combine multiple services into a single app. As long as you design the experience right, you can actually build a kind of a mega app, which basically lets you manage multiple services as an employee. And that's actually the recommended approach, because essentially we don't want as app developers, IT pros, as well as users, to actually have 500 apps installed in their Teams client, because it becomes a manageability issue and becomes an overload. So you can look to basically combine like-minded or services all inside a mega app, which the user can then use right inside Teams. Cool. So when you think about building on the Teams platform, these are the various tenets that we recommend to keep in mind when designing any Teams app. Choose from one or more of the capabilities. The good part about Teams is if you're building a bot, that does not mean that you can't build a tab for the same app. So what we basically recommend is build immersive experiences by implementing more than one platform capabilities. Use the bots for conversational workflows, and use activity feed for notifying the users, whereas use tabs for bringing in rich web experiences inside Teams. You can imagine an app which basically has all three, which means if you want to you can package all of these capabilities together into a single app, and the user can basically choose based on the scenario, can take a pick whether to use the tab or to use the bot to actually interact with the app. So it's always good to give the user that choice as to which interface does he or she want to use to interact with your app, and whatever suits with the end goal that you're trying to achieve in your scenario. Using advanced platform capabilities such as deep links, you can actually navigate the user flow from one app capability to another. And in the example that I'll show you for the Contoso Talent app, I can actually show you wherein you can use rich action buttons on bot cards to actually take the user from the bot into a tab. So wherever you feel that, hey, your bot card is basically becoming cannot hold enough information for the user. If the user wants to see a much more detailed view, using those rich deep links, you can actually direct the user into a tab, and also can maintain context or pass context. So that's how multiple capabilities on the Teams platform interact with each other, and together they actually make the platform extremely powerful, and your app experience is extremely, extremely powerful. You can leverage new adaptive cards that we have just shipped on the platform to build, as I was showing in the Contoso Talent app, and to build really, really rich cards and rich UI surfaces inside the bots as well. And of course, in the end, if you want to basically build more intelligent apps, you can use the Office 365 graph APIs to actually literally plug into the intelligence that lives in the user's Office 365 information, and have much more intelligent and smarter workflows inside Teams. So with that, a quick preview of how do you get started building apps for the Teams platform. So to get started, we'll be covering this in 5 steps, and I have like a couple of slides for each. So to get started, first, the most basic stuff that app developers can do, and the most low-cost thing that you can do, is you can actually bring your existing web experience as a tab inside Teams, right? Again, the thing to keep in mind over here is scope. If you want to build for the team scope, it will be a channel tab. If you want to build it for the personal scope, only for the user, it'll be a personal tab that you can actually enable. You can get started by creating the app manifest, which is basically a definition where you define all the various capabilities of your app, and then that's how Teams understands what is this app, who's the developer, what are the various capabilities that you're using, are you building a tab, are you building a bot, or are you building both, and are you building a connector, and so on and so forth. You can actually start by creating an app manifest using the Teams App Studio app, which is currently live on the App Store. So we recommend all developers to actually start with the lowest hanging fruit, which is start with a tab for collaboration. You can host existing apps experience directly inside Teams as an iframe, as you can see in the image over here. It's as simple as embedding your content as an iframe. You can actually integrate the Teams JavaScript SDK to get a lot more metadata and context right inside your tab. So authentication, getting information about which channel, which user is using your app, which channel your app is being used in. All of this is possible by integrating our JavaScript SDK into your web page, and then that allows your web page to actually be brought in inside Teams as a tab. For example, a list of applicants for a job position is basically a tab, and I can quickly move to my Teams over here and show you how the Contoso Talent tab looks like inside Teams. This is basically a hiring channel in Power of Teams platform team that I have. And inside that, what I've done is basically I've pinned a tab, and the way I've pinned it is this. So I can go to add a tab. I choose Contoso Talent as an app. It basically gives me a configuration experience. So it tells me which position, which job posting do you want to, which job posting do you want to show in this channel tab. I can say, okay, I need a software engineer posting. I can configure. I can give this tab a name and say save. And now what it will do is basically it'll add a new tab into my channel. This has information about the senior software engineer position that is there in my database. So it basically shows me a bunch of information. All of this is basically nothing but an iframe. You are free to design the experience the way you choose, and you've basically now embedded your web experience inside Teams as a tab. So this is a quick example of how you can build channel tabs over here. We have announced a new platform capability sometime back in build, and this is something that is currently in developer preview. You can now add apps to your private chat, which means in addition to actually having apps in channels and apps in personal scope, we've introduced the ability to add apps in a new scope, which is basically a group chat or what we call as private chat. Think of it as your tab or your app in channel is available to everybody who's in the team. Your app in personal scope is only available to you. This is a new scope where apps are now supported, which is kind of in the middle, which means if you are only a bunch of people who are interacting with that app and for which the app's data is relevant, you can actually pin a tab, and in future you can also introduce a bot into a group conversation between a fixed number of people. So think of it as list of positions in the case of Contoso Talent app. If you are a recruiter and you have you have a team of 5 recruiters who manage a bunch of positions, you can actually query the bot for positions which are of interest to those 5 people that are there in your team. Instead of doing it in a channel which is basically available to your entire HR team, you can restrict it to only the people who are part of that group chat, right? So this is something which we have just announced. Going forward, you will be able to get your app available for private chat as well. Personal apps, as I was mentioning, these are apps which are only for for you to interact in a one-to-one fashion. For example, my notes, my tasks, my bugs, my tickets, my open positions. If you are in case of Contoso Talent app, all of these are use cases which qualify for personal apps. A quick word on Teams App Studio. So as I had mentioned, the simplest way and the easiest way to get started with building your first Teams app is actually using an app which we have built to build apps. It's on the Teams App Store today. You can go to Teams, you can go and search for Teams App Studio. It's a super cool app which basically allows you to build a manifest from a UI itself. You don't have to even write a single line of code. You can actually go supply all of these details. I can just quickly show you how it looks. So if I go to Teams App Studio, I have it installed already in my Teams app. It has a bot. The bot actually allows you to search for developer documentation. So if I basically search for adaptive cards, I can interact with the Teams App Studio bot, and it will actually suggest me developer documentation, which you can go and refer to if for any topic that you type. So this is super cool. The bot allows you to kind of search for dev docs. There's a manifest editor. This is a personal tab inside the App Studio, which allows you to actually create a new app. And it has a UI through which you can actually fill in all the basic details which go into the manifest, and then after you have completed the app details, you can define all the various capabilities. Do you want to add a Teams tab? Do you want to add a personal tab? Bots, connectors, messaging extension. These are all the capabilities that you can define. Finish. Do like fit and finish stuff like add your valid domains, and then finally you can actually install the app, sideload it right inside Teams for testing purposes directly from App Studio itself. So you can click on install and you will be able to use that app in Teams and and kind of test it, perfect it, and then basically ship it on the Teams App Store. So this is a wonderful app for app developers to actually get started with building on the Teams platform. Do give it a try. It's currently live on the Teams App Store. Cool. Step 2. Now that you've built a basic app by bringing your existing web experience inside Teams as a tab, you can look to enhance your app by adding conversations. And wherever we talk about conversations, we talk about bots. You can enable bot conversations inside Teams using the Azure Bot Services. That's the Azure Bot Framework. All Teams bots are basically built using the Azure Bot Framework. You can start with simple command line bots, as I was showing you for Contoso Talent, and then further, refine your bot to add by adding, natural language processing and natural language interaction as part of phase 2. Couple of new functionalities that have gone live in Teams bot is now you can send and receive files using bots. So any IT ticketing use case or task management use case where you have to attach files, you can do that using Teams bots now by just uploading a file, and the bot will be able to save that file, or the bot can send you back a file and you can download it and save it on your device. You can interact with bots in private chats, group chats, as we covered in the previous section. You can actually, the bot framework itself is getting updated, and so the bot framework which drives bots inside Teams is going to get an update from version 3 to version 4, which is going to make interacting with your bot as an app developer extremely simple. There are some major refinements which are coming up. We'll be announcing that in due course of time. But yeah, that is something which is in preview right now. So you can go take a look at it on Bot Framework website as well. The next capability is what we announced recently, and this is going to soon hit developer preview, so you can play with it in a couple of weeks' time. This is something which is already live on the Teams clients across desktop, mobile, Android, iOS, everything. This is what we showed you in the Contoso Talent app, right? These are called adaptive cards. This is the new standard of responsive, rich cards across Microsoft ecosystem. Teams supports it, Outlook supports it, Skype supports it, Windows, Cortana, all of these Microsoft apps support this new card type called adaptive card. You can actually create very rich interactive surfaces right inside bots. You can take quick actions. It supports all kinds of actions that I had demoed: date field, input, output, complex forms. All of this is achievable using the adaptive cards inside Teams. This is the one which basically is going to hit developer preview soon. It's a new capability that we are going to announce. Previewed it in Build 2018 a couple of months back. This allows you to actually do, use a bigger UI surface, what we call as a modal dialog, right from your from your bot or from your tab to actually complete a focused workflow. So if you are filling a longer form, if you are looking at a detailed set of information, or if you are playing rich media, all of that today is cumbersome to do in bot cards. So what we have essentially built is a task module is a rich modal canvas, which allows you to load any web experience inside this particular model. The user can interact with it, and then be done with it or close it, and you will return right back in the context where you invoke the task model for. Let me see if I can give you a quick demo of this by going into the talent app. So if I go to contest of talent, I should have a task module inside it. Let me see if this works. So for example, I want to create a new job posting. So let me send this to the bot, and the bot will respond with a adaptive card. So this is an adaptive card. You can see form fields over here. I can type the title, I can type the level at which this person needs to be hired. Or what I can do is, if I need richer information or more information, I can click on open form, and hopefully this should load the task model. Yeah. So did you see this? What happened on the screen? The background got blurred, and you have now entered into a much more focused flow. You have a richer form with more fields over here, which allow me to basically add in more information and say create posting. The good part about it is when you're done with this, you actually return to the exact same space where you came from. And of course, the information is basically you can actually communicate between the bot card and the task module, and from task module back to the bot card. So this is a new modal feature that we are going to release, going to hit developer preview very soon. Of course, Microsoft Graph is definitely available for you. You can build intelligent workflows like any kind of approval workflows when you apply for a leave. Using Graph, you can actually figure out who's the manager for this employee, because that's available in the Azure Active Directory. And using the the app code and the bot that you have built, the bot can now send a rich card to the manager of the employee saying, hey, your employee has asked for leave approval, with a quick action button which says approve or deny. So all of that intelligence can be built using the information that lives in Graph. Today, Teams today has a rich set of Graph APIs. You can go to Microsoft Graph Explorer online and look at what all APIs are supported for Teams today. And more are getting added by the day. The third one is, after you have built tabs and bots, you can actually look for polishing your experience by actually building the next set of capabilities, which is the Compose extension or messaging extension. So as I said, Compose extension basically allows you to query your application, then drop a rich card so that you can share information in a rich manner. What you can see on screen is basically a quick screenshot of that. So what we have announced recently is, earlier in Compose extension, there was no way to filter your search. Now you can actually have up to 10 filters when you are searching anything in your application. So if it's a Contours of Talent app, if you want to search for positions, you can actually apply a filter for that. You want to search for candidates, you can apply a filter for that. You search by hiring manager, you can actually have another filter for that. You can have up to 10 such filters now supported in Compose extension. To give you a quick demo of how it looks, I can go to my Compose box, select Contours of Talent. This dialog that you see over here, this is basically nothing but the Compose extension. So I have two tabs here. I can search either by positions that are open in this app or candidates which are there in this app. So if I say positions, what it does is it drops a nice rich card into the Compose box, and now I can basically add my message around it, and I can @mention people and then send it in the conversation, right? So this rich card is basically nothing but what Compose extensions allow you to do, right? Cool. You can at this stage, we recommend that developers can fine-tune their experience. We have rich design guidelines available as part of our dev docs, which if you follow that, the idea is that your app can actually blend in really, really well inside the Teams UI. So there are design guidelines around personal tabs, channel tabs, how to build bots, how to use adaptive cards, how to actually build nice, effective messaging extensions, as well as do's and don'ts of, when to use proactive messaging, when to actually notify people, when is your bot becoming too spammy, and so on and so forth. So all of that guidance is available at your fingertips, right, through our dev docs if you go to the design guidelines section. Finally, after you have built the capabilities, how do you test your app, right? You need to actually ensure that your app is working fine inside Teams. All the various capabilities are gelling with each other. So the guidance over there is you can iterate and improve. First thing is to actually create the manifest package through the Teams App Studio and then sideload it into Teams for testing it, right? The way it works is this is something which Teams App Studio is automating for you. So this is basically essentially the definition, the JSON file which describes or defines the various app capabilities that you have for your Teams app, right? This is what essentially you are building when you're using Teams App Studio and using the manifest editor tab. This lists down the name, icon, description, all of the various meta properties for your app. It lists down all the capabilities and supported context. It also lists down the scopes that are supported in your app for each of the capabilities, where your bot is running, what's the Azure bot ID, what's the connector ID, what's the web URL which you are loading inside your tabs, and so on and so forth. You can use App Studio to build the complete manifest right through UI without even opening this in the code editor. You should basically then sideload your app into Teams. Either through App Studio directly, which makes it super simple, or you can go to the App Store and use the upload a custom app option, which you see here on the screen, to actually upload your app to your Teams client on your desktop or web, and then start seeing the app as an end user and interacting with it and iterating over it to improve the same. Finally, once you are ready with your app, how do you make your app available for everybody in the world? Or if you are building only for your organization, how do you build it and make it available only for users within your company, right? There are two options. One is you can actually submit it to the Office App Store. There's a well-defined process for that, also listed down in our developer documentation. You can actually submit your app to Office App Store, who will validate, who will test your app, give you feedback, make it better, and then finally it will go live on the Teams App Store for anybody in the world to actually go and see. Quick preview of Teams App Store is here. I go to Store from my left rail, and all of these apps are basically submitted by app developers like you. So these are all the apps which are currently available in the Teams App Store. People can discover it basis capabilities, or they can discover it basis different categories that we have. Right. So your app, once it gets approved on the Office Store, will show up in the Teams App Store here for anybody in the world to use. Or what you can do is, if it is a private app store which is only available for your organization, if the app qualifies for that, you can actually push that using your tenant admin to users within your company as well. For app IT pros and app admins, a frequent question is that we see from developers: how do I manage the distribution of my app? Right. So in this slide, you build an app with all of these capabilities on the left side. Define all of those capabilities essentially in the manifest, and there are different ways that you can actually make your apps available to Teams user. It can be Teams apps, which is basically only sideloaded into a team. It can be a global app which is published on the Office App Store and available to anybody in the world, or it can be the new organization only or line of business app which only is available to through the private app catalog for employees within your organization, right? Your IT pro, who's your tenant admin, can actually apply various app policies to ensure which user has access to which apps, because typically that's the discretion of the tenant admins. And then finally, for the user, they will have to consent to the app policies, install it. If there's a configuration flow, they'll configure it, authenticate, and then start using your apps, right? For IT admins, they have controls in the Office 365 Admin Center for Teams to actually enable, disable all first-party apps, all LOB apps that their developers have built for their company, all third-party apps, external apps, as well as whether developers can sideload their apps into Teams. In future, we are working on shipping advanced app analytics within Teams, so that as admins, you will be able to understand which apps are being used within your organization, who are using it, which teams are using it, how much is the usage, and so on and so forth, as well as granular user and group level app policies, which allow you to actually turn on and off specific apps for specific set of users, as low as for a single user. So we are working to kind of support these two advanced capabilities, which are basically how you will manage your team's apps in the future. So that's how the whole spectrum of building basic experiences all the way to polishing, enhancing, polishing, and then testing and distributing your apps looks like in Teams. All of these apps currently on the store. We hope that yours is next. If you're shipping for your company app store, we hope that that's next in your organizational app store. A bunch of links over here. I think we will post this as part of our blog post. But yeah, these are basically standard resources that you have for the developer documentation, sample code, the Teams App Studio install link. All of these are available. Great resources are available for you to start building on the Teams platform. We also have a dedicated partner email alias, like developer email alias. Feel free to use that email alias. We'll include that in our blog post as well. If you have any queries, any assistance that you need for building apps and shipping apps on the Teams platform, feel free to contact us on that email alias. We are extremely responsive on that. Or you can use any of our existing channels on GitHub, Stack Overflow, or User Voice, where we frequently respond to developer queries for building apps on Teams platform. That's pretty much it from my side. I'll leave it on this slide, and Dana, if you have any questions.
There are a few. I know we've run over a few minutes, and thank you for so many of you who have stayed on. Well, I'll just go through a couple of the questions as we have a few extra minutes, so if you can stay and listen,
sure.
Great. And if not, we hope to see you at Ignite if you'll be attending. And then our next community call is in November, which we'll post, and we're looking at moving to monthly, as I typed in the IM window, so we'll definitely keep you posted on that as well. There was a question about how we unblock third-party apps.
Unblock in the Teams App Store?
Yeah, it looks like in the App Studio. But it says, they typed in App Studio, okay, but then third-party apps might be blocked at the company level. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. It might be blocked at the company level. So the guidance there is talk to your tenant admin and get the third-party apps unblocked so that you can use the Teams App Studio.
Okay, that sounds great. And then what schema version is required for multiple CMD extensions?
It should be the latest schema version. 1.3 is the latest and the greatest which is published. Multiple commands in Compose extension should be supported over there.
Okay, great.
Yep.
And Hari asked, when will Graph APIs for Teams be GA? Is there a tentative schedule you can share?
There are some Graph APIs that we promoted to GA 2-3 months back at Build, actually. Typically, the way Graph APIs work is they stay in beta for an extended period of time. It's not recommended, like we don't guarantee production level quality, but I have seen app developers using the Graph APIs, even if they're in beta, they are pretty reliable, they are pretty much supporting scale. The GA happens over after they have stayed in beta for a while. But there are few which have already GA'd, so it depends on exactly which one the developer is looking for. If it is not in GA yet, just wait for a couple of months, but that should not stop you from building and using those in your apps.
Okay, and is there a link where people can find out what has been GA'd or what's coming? Or do we not have
yes, we can actually include that. So if typically in Graph Explorer and Graph documentation, the ones which are in beta, they are actually notified as being in beta. And if they are not notified as beta, that means they are GA. Most of the Teams APIs were in beta till Build 2018, but then we promoted a few to GA. We announced that in Build itself. So yeah, now it's a mix of both. Yep.
Okay, that sounds great, and we'll put a link in the blog post as well. And then Hari asked one more question. Is there a testbed that can be leveraged to simulate load?
Not that I'm aware of. It's actually a good question. That's more of a web app building question, not specifically for Teams. Like if you build any web app, web service, be it a bot or be it even a UI based service, a web page or website, There should be pretty much known tools that you can actually simulate traffic on, and you can simulate concurrent server requests. That's the typical thing that you should use. I mean, there's nothing specific and nothing unique about Teams per se. If your server is designed to handle a threshold of concurrent requests and user load, that should basically suffice. So use your existing tools is what I would say.
Okay, great. Can we expect individual analytics for each team accessible for the end users?
I will have to get back on that. We do have plans for shipping analytics. I'm personally not aware of how granular they can be. But feel free to, if that is something which is your use case, feel free to basically post that on our user voice forum. I'm sure you will hear back, and if there are others who have the same use case, they'll upvote it. So then in that case, we'll build it.
Okay, sounds good. I'm just going to answer a couple more questions here, and then I think we'll probably be a little over time. Can we try App Studio in live teams, so company teams, to develop and test custom apps?
Yes, if side loading is allowed, if it's not blocked by your IT admin, then definitely you can use App Studio. So App Studio, if it is available, feel free to use it. Where will you test it? Like when it comes to testing that app, that's where side loading comes into picture. So these are two different things, but just check if you get this option. Let me just go back to my slide. I'll show you which option to look for. In your Teams App Store, if you see this option, I'm just zooming it on my screen, upload a custom app on your store page or your store view. If this is available, that means side loading and testing the applications inside your live Teams instance is supported, or your IT admin hasn't blocked it. If that is the case, feel free to basically use it. If that is not, grab a Teams free tenant or a trial tenant from the Office Developer Portal, and you can use App Studio in that, build your manifest, and then sideload into that team. So there's nothing that basically stops you from building and sideloading.
Okay, and last question, FTab, sorry for the delay. Can we configure tab through Graph API?
Not yet. That is basically a pretty complex feature, but we have heard both customers and partners asking for it. We have it in our backlog. Can't commit when it will be available, but it's a known scenario. We'll get back and update if that is something which we are actively working on. At this point of time, no.
Okay, we'll keep you posted as to when that's coming.
Yeah.
All right, and then is there a Teams email alias that people should use? I know someone had just asked that in the IM window.
Can we include that in the blog post, or I can actually spell it out? But Dana, if you have the IM window active, can you put that over there?
Sure.
Okay, so it's MST part mstpart@microsoft.com.
mstpart@microsoft.com. And we'll make sure to include that as well with some of the other stuff.
Yes.
So you should be good to know.
This email alias is managed by a colleague of mine as well as myself. So I think it directly reaches us. So any kind of guidance that app developers are looking for, you can directly get in touch with the product group using this.
Okay, that sounds great.
Yeah.
Well, thanks everyone who stayed for the extra 15 minutes. I think it was really good content today. Thank you, Vishrat, for presenting today. And again, we'll send out an announcement over Twitter that the blog and the video are ready, and the presentation will also be posted. So we'll get all that to you guys. And thanks again. Have a great day.
Thank you everyone for joining. I hope this was useful. Thanks, Rina.